Hello and welcome back to another episode of Only a Bag, an Italy travel podcast. I'm Nathaniel Mellor.
And I'm Darcy Melton.
And today we are going to pick up right where we left off in, 2 days episode. There needs to be a better way of saying 2 days ago's episode.
Wednesday's episode?
Wednesday's episode. That's probably a much better way of saying, yeah. Day before yesterday. Yeah, that's so much better.
You are welcome.
Thank you. And we're going to just talk about where to stay in Naples as far as neighborhoods, as far as pros and cons, what you might be looking for, what you don't want to look for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And as we mentioned in the last episode, we'll put links in the description to hotels that we like. You are obviously under no obligation to use those links. They are affiliate links. They do help out the podcast. However, if you are obviously like accruing reward points, or if you are using your credit card travel portal or something like that, and you just want the protection, absolutely, we encourage that you do that instead. And also, I just want to say thank you to everybody who has been supporting us, listening, leaving reviews, and listening genuinely. That's been amazing. It's been super, super helpful. It's helping us grow. And if you'd like us, what you're listening to, and you want to leave us a review, you can leave a review anywhere you listen to, especially Apple and Spotify. Those seem to be our biggest platforms. You can also follow us there if you'd like to follow along to stay up to date with any of our episodes, including the next Naples episodes coming out. We also have a website, onlybag.com. If you'd like to leave us a comment, send us a comment, whether you have a question about your trip, or you have any sort of, if you want some sort of like more information on anything we've said, anything like that, you can absolutely send us a message. You can also read articles that we have there on things like just what we're talking about, which is quite nice and pleasant. Last but not least, if you'd like to support the podcast in a financial manner, you can do so on Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/onlyabag, where you can leave a donation, much like PayPal, and it will go towards mostly things and equipment and web hosting fees, and moving off of Spotify eventually into like Podbean or Podsprout or something like that.
Yes. We will still be appearing everywhere that you listen to this podcast, but we'll be hosted somewhere else potentially.
That would be the dream. So thank you all so much. And I guess without further ado, jumping into it.
Yes. Can we paint a picture a little bit of Naples before we get into the neighborhoods? Just a general picture. I know we've talked about it so much. It's super historic. It's grungy. It's got a lot of graffiti everywhere. And I think, and maybe this is just, it's not just anything. We've been there many times. Mm-hmm. It's wonderful. I love it. It's chaotic and great. Whenever we have been there with other people, they have the same reaction that I think you and I had the second time we went, which is, oh, there's trash. There's trash.
That was, I think, my first time I went, because I think my mom had told me, oh, you're going to love Naples. There's these yellow buildings. There's this and that. She's an artist, so Naples yellow is a thing. All sorts of, you're an artist. Naples yellow is a thing.
I guess I didn't really think about it, though.
Like, beautiful yellow buildings. I get there, and I'm like, I don't think this is Naples.
But I was coming off of the first time I saw Naples. I'd lived in New York for like a year, so it was my vibe. It was like the grungy part of New York that had far been sanitized by that point, but it had become an aesthetic. So seeing Naples, I was like,
it was not aesthetic. It was just
it's just how it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's to warn you what Naples is like. There's going to be trash around. I feel like you and I don't see it so much anymore. Like, you can still see.
I would say that I don't know if they have a different agreement or if they have a different arrangement, if they hired a lot more people for the sanitation, but it's a lot less. And I will say some of it too. I don't want you to think that people there are just like throwing trash out the window. A lot of is like in any city, it's when you put there, a lot of like Rome and stuff will have like the trash,
like municipal trash thingies.
Thank you. Like where you put like your waste basically. And anytime that the wind blows, which it blows a lot in Naples, it will tend to just like pick up any trash that wasn't quite secured. It's also it's hard to explain, but it's like it's such an old city that I feel like you might not be seeing trash from that week. You might be seeing trash from.
Well, like, for example, Florence has a great system, which is an old city too, but they also, I think, have a lot of money, and also that it's not as old as Naples. So they have some like underground area available to create this different trash system. And so in some parts of Florence, it's underground trash. Like, it's very neat and futuristic. Like you pull up the little grate on the ground. It's very sanitized looking, put your little garbage in and you don't see it. But in much older places like Rome and Naples, there is nowhere to do that. Mm-hmm. So the trash has to go on the street, and then it inevitably blows around, like you're saying.
And sometimes it's just simply like the napkin that was left that you left on your cafe table or whatever, things like that. Obviously, cigarette butts, smoking is definitely still a thing in Italy.
Oh, yes. Be well warned. Smoking is very much a thing here.
Especially if you have like as you have a kind of a slight allergy to cigarette smoke in Naples for whatever reason, it's like whatever the pack variety.
There's a certain kind, a certain brand of cigarettes that I feel like several people specifically in Naples smoke that just makes me kind of swell up and get all itchy.
And sneezing.
Yes.
So, but you're gonna paint a picture.
So that's part of the picture.
Okay.
Is the grungy trashness.
Yeah.
But also it's so quirky and weird. I guess one other warning is we briefly touched on this in the last episode and we've talked about it before, but you might arrive to your hotel and think, "Oh no, I've put myself in a dangerous neighborhood. This building is falling apart. It's covered in graffiti. Where am I?" If you're on Instagram and you've been looking up Italy travel things, Naples travel things, I'm sure you've seen other people's videos of, we thought we were going to get kidnapped. Surprise, it was a beautiful room on the inside.
100%. Yeah.
That's much of what Naples looks like.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that the inside will be lovely,
For sure.
And you're safe. But also
and clean. I just want to throw that out there too. Yeah.
And clean, absolutely. But there's so much weird, quirky magic in Naples. We talked about how ubiquitous it is to go to the pizza place that's next to the Luthier. That's kind of all of Italy. But Naples has like weird shops, and they really lean into the odd grunge. Also, whenever we were staying in Naples the last time, we stayed in Centro Storico in
Spacca Napoli.
Napoli,
Which is like I think a street more than anything. Like a neighborhood street.
Yeah,
thing.
like a neighborhoody street thing. And we arrived to not a hotel. Well, we thought it was a hotel anyways, but people were just selling like cigarettes in a cart on the street and different kinds of fried food. But it had the sense that like someone's
bottles of wine that
grandma made
themselves.
the fried food. Yeah, and the uncle made I made that up, but it's very much someone's house, homemade wine,
Yeah.
And it's just weird and wonderful.
But it's also, I think, like right next door was an association building, which is like a private association. So it's just a bunch of guys inside smoking around a card table.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, so it's a very, I think we mentioned before, and the first time we talked about Naples, a good way to think of it is historically, I think the people in Naples tend to live life outside rather than inside. And I say that because I think Spacca Napoli, I believe that's the entire street name. It could just be that literally a couple blocks, but that area, especially as you get kind of closer to the station, you can really tell because a lot of the shops, while they have inside space, have almost everything outside. Like paper towels, crackers, cookies, drinks, everything. It's like, anything that doesn't need a freezer, but sometimes they have freezers outside as well. If you're like, yeah, I need to get some peas, I need to get a couple of pieces of chicken, the butcher next door, so there's especially as you get, and we'll talk about Spanish Quarter in this episode as well, but in the Spanish Quarter, we notice as well that it's, there's a name for it. I wish I remember what the name is on top of my head. I apologize. I don't, but it's a name for a type of one room. It's like a studio apartment. Mm-hmm. We would just call it a studio apartment, but it's a name specifically, I think, for this.
Monolocale?
No. It's like an old name for like a. It's not cave, but it's something like that. It's like something where it's like, oh yeah, this is just a one room apartment that was for rent or for sale or somebody owns, and so a lot of them haven't been updated because there's nowhere to put a second room. It's just like. So, and again, some of these are still rented to people who live in Naples. Some of them are obviously short-term lettings and things like that. But especially Spanish Quarter, even Spacca Napoli, things like that, it's very much a vibe of people living outside. Like,
absolutely.
There's that sort of, I think years ago I read this book about geography of genius, and this specifically about Athens, but he's talking about the house was really just a place you sleep. You don't really spend your day at your house. You just sleep there, and then you wake up and you leave, and your day is spent outside. And I think that is a really good way to describe Naples. And part of it is, too, because obviously Naples was started by the Greeks. Could be a connection there. Yeah. Highly doubt it. But it does, when you're there, you really kind of feel like you're part of everybody else's life rather than life's happening inside behind the doors. Like whether it's a shop, whether it's whether it's just something that I have to go in and take up space. It's like, no. You're outside. We're all outside. So and you're, I don't know, it's almost like you're forced into the fabric of Naples, whether or not you want to be, kind of thing.
Absolutely, you are. Yeah, and I love that. So when we stayed last time in Naples, we were lucky enough to have a little balcony. We were only there one night, but it was so nice. I was just standing out there before going to bed, and it was like midnight. But a family, and so I can't explain what it looked like from our balcony, but it was almost like if you
looked down to the roofs of other.
Yes, we looked down, exactly, because we were on the third floor? Fourth floor? So you could look down onto other people's balconies that were all around you and onto the roof of another place, then up into other people's balconies, across The street you could kind of see through a little passageway.
And if I can, so I just want to, the roof, just to give you guys a good idea, and I know you're like, what if that has nothing to do with it? Just, it paints a picture, trust me. But the roof is what we thought was a courtyard at first, because
Yes.
it's a one complete roof that we are like, oh, that must be a courtyard, and people have to enter their apartments on that roof. Like,
Well, that's what I was going to say. So whenever I was standing out on our balcony, I saw at midnight a couple with their two young kids showing back up, and they were, if you were dreaming and your brain thought, what do apartment buildings in close quarters look like? This is what your brain would dream up, and might wake up thinking, there's no way engineering would actually make that work. That's what all of this looked like. It was just so smushed together. So a family arrived. They bent down from their sort of half balcony, which was on top of another house, but not the same building, to their neighbor who was coming out of her sort of sunroom doing the laundry, onto, like what Nathaniel's saying, this tarmac roof of another building. She let the dog out of the little baby gate that was on top of the tarmac roof. Dog was running around. The kids, there were clearly kids' bikes on the roof. She was putting up the laundry, again, using the tarmac roof sort of like
at
as her
midnight.
balcony, going back and forth into her laundry room, which was clearly also her kitchen. All of this was happening at midnight, and there were tons of other people around me, but you really are absolutely forced into the fabric, into the network of this city.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good way to, I mean, honestly, really like the snapshot way to describe it. So, which is all simple to say, if you stay in Centro Storico, as we talked about in the last episode, that might be stuff that you are going to be privy to, I guess. So, and it's also something too, if you're like, that sounds actually terrible.
Yeah.
So maybe don't stay in Centro Storico. Maybe stay away from that. Or don't even stay near the Centrale, the station as well, because that could all be, that's all, and to be fair, that's a lot of Naples. It does get, I will say, it gets more sanitized, and we'll talk about a couple of neighborhoods that get a little more sanitized in terms of wealthy, in terms of space, in terms of gardens. But there's definitely a feeling in Naples, again, where people have been living on top of each other, for lack of a better
Yes.
word, for the better part of 2,000 years. So
Yes.
it's kind of like, that's just what you are.
It's
You
just
know, it's
life.
really, yeah. And it's always nice to go there because I think it's, I don't know, where we live in a small sort of mountain town, it's quite isolating. And I think even especially in the winter, and as we get closer and more into the winter, when people kind of don't want to come out, it gets even more isolating. So it's always nice to kind of go to a place, especially in the winter, where it's almost like winter doesn't exist, because like, well, we're not going to be inside. No, that's ridiculous. We still have to sell things. We still have to live. So it's almost kind of like I don't know, year round. It's just this constant current of motion and people. So I guess if that's Centro Storico.
Yes.
So I had this total disaster with cardinal directions in the last episode. But I've learned in the last 20 minutes. So continuing west is Via Toledo. It's a little hard, and actually I should have mentioned this last episode. I do highly recommend y'all look at a map before going, and then even if you want to listen to this episode, kind of skip through the parts and kind of line them up with a map. It's because when I say north and west, it's all hard. I mean, there's no, I think Spanish Quarter is the only area with actual like straight like grid system streets, and everything else is kind of a not remotely straight or grid system. But even then, it's not built north to south. It's kind of built like on a southwest to northeast kind of like angle. It's just cardinal directions don't exist in that state. There's also a lot of weirdly dead end streets, which we found when we were there. Like we were trying to really explore, and then we kept realizing, like, I think 3 times we went down the same dead end street, not realizing that again, we're at this street. This is ridiculous. So with all that being said, highly recommend you look at a map for this. But you have essentially in a very loose straight line, it kind of goes station, you go west, Centro Storico, you go west, and you kind of go to the top of the Spanish Quarter.
Okay.
And that goes down. It's angled down, sort of like if you're looking at the map down and to the left, Via Toledo would be kind of angling down. It is the Spanish Quarter. It's super famous. I'm sure you've seen photos. That is where the yellow buildings are, actually. It can be a good place to stay. Again, this is me personally, I wouldn't necessarily stay there.
It's very loud.
Again, it's quite loud. And this time it's less loud with people marching through and more loud with actually mopeds, I will say. People on mopeds tend to fly through the Spanish Quarter, and partly because it's straight streets and you don't have to slow down. And so people are like, well, I don't have to slow down. And you're like, well, what if I'm walking in the street? They don't have to slow down. So, and again, we've talked about this before, going back to the sort of painting a picture. It's where you will see people on mopeds, and you have like somebody in the front driving, somebody behind them, doing schoolwork, somebody behind them on their phone, and you're like, it's like 3 or 4
Somehow
people.
a 2-year-old is squished between everybody.
Yeah.
No helmet.
Or the 2-year-old's the only one with the helmet, but the helmet
Yeah.
does not fit. But they're like, it's worth it. It's a good shot, good try. So it can be, again, chaos. And I guess so. Yeah, Spanish Quarter it is the neighborhood I mentioned that does have, especially the ground level, will have a lot of like monolocale sort of studio apartments. And again, there's one source of light, and that is the door. Some of the doors, as you get farther towards Vomero, which is up the hill, Spanish Quarter, I think in the photos kind of seems like it's flat, and it is flat running. It's hard to explain again because it's not a north,
It's
south, east,
almost
to
like
west.
it's terraced.
That is a great way to describe it. Yes, each street up is basically getting up higher, but then the cross streets are flat, but going up is angled. And as you go farther up away from the touristy part of the Spanish Quarter, is when you start to see more of like the, rather than like the laundry outside hanging up, it's like, no, that's just laundry on the street just
Yes.
drying. Or again, as we mentioned, people living outside, it's a lot of times people have kitchen tables outside and they're having lunch, and it's a little bit interesting again because it feels quite voyeuristic, not in a
It
sexual
is.
way, but
Well,
like
it's a bit like, because people do live outside for so much of the year, it's almost like you're walking through people's living rooms
that's exactly
in a
it. That's
way,
exactly it.
which I think people seem very used to. It's not like people are bothered that we were walking through, and it's not like we were walking through their actual living room, to be clear.
Right, right.
Walking down the street, maybe we were sitting outside having a cigarette on their phone, watching TV outside where all the laundry dried right next to them, having lunch, all these things. But you're right, it does very much feel like you're in someone else's sort of intimate space.
Yes. And I think also, if I may, too, just two things on that. One, just from us here at Only a Bag, we ask that you don't take photos of people. There's a,
Oh, for
I just,
sure.
it's again, it's that thing of I know like there's an argument like, well, they're in public. It's like technically yes, but there's like kind of an idea of like, not really, no. And also there are a lot of laws around on taking photos of people without their permission and then also posting or making money from it and things like that. But I think there's an idea that like, oh, it's great for street photography because people are doing things outside. And it's like, right, but like, there's not really much of a choice. So it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. So I think it's like, I would, if anytime we're with somebody, I do ask them not to take photo. I'm like, don't, that's just strange.
Or ask if you can take their photo.
Or ask if you can get their photos and be very prepared for somebody saying, no, of course
Right,
not.
exactly.
So that's just one. And then second, this is hilarious, but just if you do see laundry drying and you're like, this is some cute stuff, first consider it might be laundry drying and
I
not.
almost picked up some clothes last time we were in Naples. We were kind of near some vintage shops,
Yeah,
which have
yeah.
a lot of clothes outside for sale.
All these racks of clothes, yeah.
And we were on a block with no vintage shops. And I thought this one was maybe like a little pop up. It was someone's clothes rack. Luckily, I did not touch anything. But I was looking at it like, oh, that one is cute. And I kind of went to put my hand up, and then I saw a woman on the other side, and I was like, you know what? This looks like a family's grouping of clothing. There's some little kids' clothes, some women's clothes. I think this is not for me.
Yeah.
So watch out.
I would say if you happen to, and I think that's specifically like we were primed because we were like looking for clothes. I'm like, oh, here's clothes. But if you happen to see clothes drying and you're like, but they're arranged so cutely, they still might just be drying.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. So Spanish Quarter, again, it's like, it is great. There are a lot of apartments. I think I found a lot of like Airbnb type stuff. Some hotels, but again, they're hotels that are in sort of renovated apartments. Far fewer in terms of actual hotels, just given the structure and given the sort of history. It doesn't really have like oh, that's a hotel building. And there might be one or two, but when I look at it on maps and stuff like that, it's kind of, again, a weird area where there isn't really a lot of hotels specifically.
It's really just very residential.
Especially,
And then there's some
yeah.
shops in the bottom.
Well, and then think of like Via Toledo, it does have hotels, and then kind of south of Via Toledo towards like the port or towards like Piazza del Plebiscito does have like a lot of hotels. So it can be a bit confusing, but I wanted to mention, again, the reason actually I wanted to mention that one specific is I see a lot of people say, oh, you should stay there. It's a great place. And I feel like it's a beautiful place to visit. Mm-hmm. It's a gorgeous place to visit. And I think staying there is a bit of a missed opportunity because you can stay in better places.
Okay.
So it's almost like, why would you stay in the place that is interesting to visit but not as interesting to stay, rather than staying at one that's more interesting to stay and interesting to visit, if that makes sense? It's kind of like, if you could only stay in one place in Naples, I wouldn't necessarily recommend Spanish Quarter, but absolutely you should visit it.
Yes.
It's not like, it doesn't have a lot of nightlife. As you mentioned, it's quite residential, and in the sense of like people live there. It's apartment buildings and stuff. Once you get past the first few streets, there are bars and cafes, but they are very much for like tourists and people living there. So it's not like late night bars and cafes. There are some restaurants, but they're not like the best restaurants in Naples or necessarily. I mean, they're good. I mean, some of them are great, but it's not like, it's not have any one thing. I think the Spanish Quarter is famous for being the Spanish Quarter, and therefore things have cropped up around it, but it's not like I think where other neighborhoods are like, this is famous for its, linguine with clams, whatever it is. And so people kind of like, support that in terms of let's put a hotel near this world's famous restaurant rather than let's put a restaurant near this interesting kind of area, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Chicken and egg situation is what I'm getting at. So I guess I'm kind of going to abandon the whole east and west thing at this point, and I'm hoping that you're looking at a map because it just gets confusing. Because if you go back to Centro Storico and you go south from Centro Storico, you hit the Porto, Porto, it's a port in English. And that's, again, another sort of historic area. It's not bad. I have very little to say on it. I've actually stayed in that area. We've walked there a number of times, but we've never stayed there. For me, it personally felt like we didn't even know had left Centro Storico, technically. We thought we were still in the same neighborhood. It wasn't until much later realizing at a map that I was like, oh, technically that's the port. It's also near Naples, as we mentioned in like 3 episodes ago, getting to Naples. There are 2 ports, one for cruise ships and one for ferries. I think this one's closer to the cruise ship, if I believe, port, and not necessarily the ferry one. That could be mixed. I always get there's like Molo Bellevero and then the other one I can't. I always get the 2 of them confused, and I apologize. Again, I highly recommend maps, y'all. Not the app maps, but
Using a map?
Using a map, yes, a map. Which is simply to say, again, this does change. If you are arriving by cruise ship or by ferry from somewhere else, it is not a bad idea to stay at the port. You get off the boat and you're just like, yeah, we have lodgings. We're there. We're ready to go. But as far as staying there, it's just again, it's one of those things that's an interesting walkthrough. Yeah.
Would you say that there are more hotels in that neighborhood because there's more kind of space for it?
I think, and again, this is one of those things when I'm looking at hotels, and especially for this episode, because you and I sometimes have like just a lot of times it's like we're either staying at the station because we're only there for a night and we just need to get out quickly, or we're having somewhere and we're going to stay somewhere more interesting. There seems to be more hotels, especially in the sort of budget mid-range, if that makes sense, rather than like the nice range.
Okay.
So, I mean, again, it's a totally reasonable place to stay. It's just someplace, again, I see this. I feel like this episode is becoming more of like my response to other people's stuff, I realize, because I think it's like I had these, oh, you could stay here, you could stay there. It's all 6 of one, half dozen the other. And then I'm reading like articles, like, again, Travel and Leisure, and I'm like, oh, you guys are really making this seem like a place that it's not that place. It's just, that is giving a very different impression than what the place actually is. And I think if I had read that first and then gone there second, I'd be like, that is not what I thought when I heard port. I was thinking something totally different. It's just kind of a neighborhood near the water. That being said, there is the Piazza del Plebiscito, which I mentioned before. It's sort of...
Plebiscito?
Yeah.
Great word.
I know, right? It's sort of west of the port, south of the Spanish quarters, south of Centro Storico. It's a little bit... It's... Technically, I consider it still part of the port because, it's very much close to a port. However, in Naples, and if you're looking at directions, people will just use it as a kind of an area. Like, oh, near the Piazza del Plebiscito, it's easy. That is kind of almost near Castel dell'Ovo, which is that sort of southern castle that juts out. That seems to be great for families. It's also, again, wide open spaces, not as loud, not as crazy, bigger rooms, more hotels in that area. So, and a lot more of like, I mean, what I would consider hotel, like that is a hotel. So if you are traveling as a family, that is actually kind of a great location. And again, still central. There are still metro stops near there if you're taking the metro. There's still bus stations near if you're taking the bus. And if you are going on like a day trip to Capri, you are actually still quite close to the ferry port.
Yeah, super convenient.
So yeah, I think ferry for families, or if you're, again, doesn't have to just be families, but I know that for families, it's a decent size for space. If you're just like, I need some space, or if you're a family like, we're getting our kids another room because they need to be in their own room, then it's a decent place because it's hotels with that kind of space.
Cool.
If that makes sense. Sorry, I'm the one doing all the talking. I realized I did the research for this one, and I didn't realize it'd be 2 episodes, so I do apologize for those of you listening going like, oh my God, when is Darcy going to talk?
I'm going to be talking a lot in the next few episodes. Don't worry.
So here we go. And then I guess, so that's like kind of more or less most of the common areas, the popular areas. There are 2 places I'm actually going to mention kind of first that I've seen in a lot of articles, and it almost seems, again, like I would never recommend this to somebody unless it's your second or third trip to Naples, or if you're looking for space, or if you have money and you're looking for a more relaxed sort of upscale vacation where you dip into Naples occasionally. But like, as you mentioned, you're painting the picture of this really beautiful sort of slice of life happening. If you're like, that seems chaotic and stressful, and I don't really want to be part of that, I'd rather kind of be garden, trees, sea view, nice area, really quiet, good restaurants, expensive drinks, but nice drinks, that kind of stuff. There's Posillipo, which is sort of like a fancy area of Naples, an upscale area of Naples. We talked about it before. It's it's along the coast. It's space is a good way to think about it. It's just got large houses and large space, so it's got a lot of vacation rentals as well as hotels that are.
But this is like it's a different town, no?
No, it's not, because we've talked about Pozzuoli, which is a different town, but
Okay.
Posillipo is still kind of it's a affluent neighborhood is a good
Okay.
way to describe it, and I've seen that one a lot mentioned. For if it's almost like going to New York City, but you stay in the Hamptons. There is, and I think for some of you that is like a dream, right? That's exactly what you do, and it makes sense. You're like, I'm gonna take a cab into the city, and I'm gonna see some stuff in the city, but I'm gonna stay in a place that's nice, tranquil, relaxed, and it fits my vibe. That would be Posillipo. Mergellina is also right next to that. We've talked about getting around Naples. I said it. You're probably never going to take the Mergellina funicular. There is one that goes basically from Mergellina to Upper Mergellina. It's again, it's not as far over as Posillipo. It's actually like one neighborhood closer between Chiaia and Posillipo is Mergellina. It's a little, again, I wouldn't recommend it. It's a little far. It
It
just
sounds like both
I think it's Posillipo,
Posillipo,
but Posillipo.
and Margellina. You said
I think Mergellina.
Margellina. Are they walkable to what you would want to see in Naples, or you're gonna have to take some sort of
You're gonna have to take
taxi
some
or
sort of taxi.
transportation? Okay.
There, if I'm not mistaken, there are no. I don't believe there's any metro stops.
Wow.
It turns before you get there because it turns up towards the hospital before you get to Mergellina, before you get to Posillipo. I believe it's just bus and taxi, but it's one of those things too. It's a little like incongruous because if you're staying there, you're probably not taking the city bus kind of thing. It's a pricier per night.
Fancy.
It's 300-400 a night kind of thing.
Okay.
So you're probably not going to be on the city bus. You're probably should be taking a taxi. So it's one of the things where, again, if you're thinking like, it's almost kind of like I want to be in a place like Sorrento, but less touristy and closer to Naples. That would be kind of it, because
Okay.
it really is a gorgeous view of the Gulf of Naples. Quieter, not. I mean, there's also great beaches. People do go swimming in the. People from Naples will kind of come out to Posillipo to go swimming. It's closer than Sorrento and Positano and Amalfi, all that kind of stuff. So it's really good swimming there. It's really beautiful beaches. It's very green, very open. It's just kind of not that close.
Okay.
Mergellina, same way. However, Chiaia, which I just mentioned, which is spelled like it's Chiaia, Chiaia.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just CH in Italian. There's a K sound in English, Chi. So it's Chiaia, K, so Chiaia. I'm saying that in case you're looking at a map and going, there's this Chiaia place, but I don't understand the other one he said. That one is, again, an affluent area as well, upscale, definitely sort of where if you are old Napolitano money, you're from Chiaia, basically.
Okay.
And that is actually close enough to walk. So if you're thinking, I want cute boutique shops, I want things like made in Italy or Italy designed, but like not necessarily like sort of, I was going to name fashion houses and I realized I don't know any Italian fashion houses. Prada, I guess. My first name is
Dolce & Gabbana.
Dior, and I was like, I don't think Dior is Italian. I feel like that's like French or something because there's no vowel at the end of it. Dolce & Gabbana. Yeah, so any of these fashion houses.
Who are not cool people, by the way. I don't support them.
Oh, I did not know this.
Just a little tidbit of my opinion there.
I love that.
Okay, moving on.
I would love to ask you more about that, but I realized we're almost at the end of the episode, and
Just leave some mystery on that.
yeah, we can Darcy's opinions on Dolce & Gabbana, episode 45. Just she has a lot. No, but so there's Chiaia. It's a really beautiful neighborhood. We've been actually, you and I have been through it last time on our trip there, like actually through it rather than sort of vaguely near it, because we were kind of curious about it and we'd heard a lot about it, and it is really neat. It's again, boutique shops. The leather shoe place you like is there.
Oh,
leather
yeah.
sandal place you like is there. That you found online, and then you realize like, oh, this is where we are. And it's something, if you're looking for kind of something with fun Italian flair without being fashion house. And I say without being fashion house because that is by and large arguably what you can buy in Naples, what you can buy in Milan, which is what you can buy in France, which is what you can buy in
Right.
New York City. It's not like that different or any different, I imagine. I don't know. I know that like H&M will have different clothes to different countries, but I don't know if major fashion houses do.
I think they do.
Okay.
But in any case.
So if you're looking for something more local, more interesting, that would be a place for shopping. It's got really nice restaurants, like usually highly rated restaurants. It's also super chill and quiet. It is residential, even if there are hotels there, but it's still residential in the sense where it's a quiet residential, not mopeds flying through, but more of like chic people walking home from work or like, getting a cab. So if you're looking for something quiet, upscale without being out of because again, like Chiaia is really, you're within a 5 minute walk maybe from like the Galleria Umberto, depending on
Right.
where in Chiaia you
And
stay.
you're still very much all in that area, walking through very interesting places and lots of shops and things like that. It's not like you're going to walk from Chiaia through some sort of dead area where there is nothing to see
Right,
into the
right.
center of Naples.
Right, and I think that's actually a great way to put it as well. You are from there. You are literally you're going straight into interesting things, and also too, if you are thinking like, well, the Paslipo kind of sounded nice. I want to check that out. You just go the other way and check that out. So it's almost like if you're thinking slightly more, and I say upscale vacation, I just mean there are plenty of expensive hotels in Naples proper that are just like,
Like in the historic center.
yeah, in a historic center near there's no one near the station. It's like a panoramic hotel. It's just a ugliest building, no offense, but gorgeous views because you just get the view of all of Naples and you don't have to see that building. No offense. To that, we have a link for it in the description because it's just you guys have to check it out. I don't know, it's crazy. I just in my head I'm like
It does have crazy good
it
views.
has crazy good views. So if you're in Chiaia though, it's a little bit. There are essentially it's a different upscale, but just a little more refined, for lack of a
Okay.
better word. In the sense too, like historically, people from Chiaia would go to Sorrento in the summer and go to their summer houses in Sorrento, swimming, that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit like you kind of get that feel where people are bringing a little bit of Sorrento back home with them, or like, oh, I want to kind of feel like I'm near my garden, because a lot of summer homes historically, the palazzos in Sorrento were like massive lemon orchards around them or lemon groves around them. So it's kind of like you do get that feeling of like, oh, I can see like them trying to pull that into it, if that makes sense. So that's Chiaia. I highly recommend it if you're looking for some quiet, a neighborhood, chill, upscale, good food, good bars, and shopping, like a little upper scale shopping. And then I think the last one I wanted to mention is Vomero, which we talked about in the last one. We actually walked up there. There's a famous walk up there, and there's also funicular up there. To be very clear, it's much easier. It's a neighborhood we've only walked through, I think, a couple times because there is the Castel Sant'Elmo up there, and that's kind of the thing. There's also a neighborhood I've mentioned in the last episode too, that I think it was last episode, no, 2 episodes ago, that it used to be all farmland. So when it was built up with space in mind rather than trying to cram as many people into a small area as possible. It was more of like, well, since I have a farm up there, I might as well put a palazzo up there. So you kind of get oh, these are some nice houses. And again, not all of them, I want to say nice. When I say nice, I just said Chiaia and Pasilipo are nice. Those are nice and still maintained. Some of Vomero is nice and, the family does not have money to maintain the house.
Got it.
It very much reminds me of like the sort of like the English lords and ladies that don't have money anymore kind of thing. So it's like
Right.
beautiful house, just the roof needs to be redone and it is fallen apart. That's kind of a little bit of a matter. It's like it's the other end of wealthy kind of thing. It's like, oh, I mean, still wealthy, but the plaster is peeling off the front of the giant palazzo. Plenty of places there. It's also apparently really well known for its nightlife. I don't think you have personally been for its nightlife, but there are a lot of bars, late night bars, lounge bars, that kind of stuff happening up there. So if you're thinking clubs, if you're thinking bars, if you're thinking after dinner, I want to drink and I'm going to be out to like one or two, Vomero is the place to be. It's also, again, has that sort of feel of like, well, there's always somebody out and watching. It tends to be safe in that sense. Not that places with the clubs tend to not be. I don't,
Yeah.
I feel like there's it can be weird for sure, but if you're kind of near there, you're also a quick walk back to your apartment, so it can be quite a safe area in that sense. And again, honestly, as we mentioned, beautiful views from there as well. You are up in a hill, so you do, depending where you are, you might get lucky and get a view of the Gulf and get a view of the rest of Naples. It does tend to be a little loud. What we found when we were there, just walking around. I don't know if it's how many flight plans go over it, but some do for sure. So it's not, again, I don't know how many planes land in Naples at night. I don't know how well insulated your room will be. Just something to keep in mind is there will be planes flying over, especially early in the morning when the EasyJet and Ryanair, Wizz Air, all those budget airlines that do land at like 5, 4, 6 in the morning, bringing sort of because it's cheaper. That's kind of when you might start getting woken up in terms of just like the rumbling and the loud noises. So I think that for me is the last of I'm looking at my list now, the last of the major sort of neighborhoods.
Super.
At some point, I wanted to kind of briefly mention like staying. Maybe sorry, it's already gone long. For 10 seconds, Some people have asked, especially like on Reddit, but even us, like Sorrento, Pompeii, Herculaneum, like what about staying there? It's What are your thoughts?
Hard pass.
Okay, that's kind of where.
For I guess for Pompeii and Herculaneum, hard pass on staying there because while you should absolutely visit those two historical sites, the towns around them I feel are really more for like if you have family there or friends there, of course you would want to stay in the same town as your friends or family. But you don't really need to stay there if you're just going to visit those two sites for a day or something like that.
Yeah.
Sorrento is lovely. It's not my favorite place to stay, but if you want to have like a Sorrento vacation, of course, go to Sorrento and stay there. But I think you could go and stay in Sorrento and then take a day trip to Naples. That wouldn't be my choice just because it's not my vibe, but that is possible. I think that's much more possible than staying in Pompeii or Herculaneum and trying to do a day trip to Naples.
And I think that's where I'm coming from, because on the map, Pompeii is about equidistant between Naples and Sorrento, and around the station and around the entrance of the archaeological site, it's actually some nice places, and you're like, oh, this could be a cute little town, and it's secondo me, in my opinion, for those of you who might have stayed in Fiumicino in Rome, which is where the airport is, Fiumicino has a kind of a nice little area to it. Weird, strangely, like for essentially being only like now only really known for having the airport, it also has a kind of a cute area, kind of.
Because it was a town before that,
Yeah, it
right?
was like a little
Okay.
like just near
It already existed.
yeah, near the river. Pompeii, I mean, obviously it doesn't, I don't know, I never got the sense of like this is, and maybe I haven't explored it that well, and that could totally be it. It's nice enough, but it very much feels like people are kind of there to live and work while they're working in Naples or something else, and they just kind of come back to live. It's like, so it almost feels like there's a city sort of existing alongside the archaeological site that don't necessarily interact and aren't almost like, because I think a lot of the town is just sort of I don't know, almost seems to exist despite the archaeological site, which maybe is a terrible way to put it, but it's just, I don't know. I thought there'd be more of like, oh, that's such an old and beautiful part of like, history. I wonder the town must also be kind of something interesting. And you're like, oh no, it's a very 1960s to 1980s apartment buildings. It's not like that, like mind blowing. And again, if you're staying there for the night because you're like, well, we want to get up early and see Pompeii, that's one thing for sure. It's more of just like making it your home base while trying to see Naples and while trying to
Right.
see Sorrento. I keep going back to that thing of like, if you could wake up in any of these neighborhoods, like where would you want to wake up? And that I think is Sorrento is you have a hard pass. I don't think it's terrible. I mean, in sense of like, I don't disagree. It's touristy for sure. I think I will say I've seen a lot of people more recently than before talk about it was more touristy than they thought, which that was interesting.
The few times we've been to Sorrento, so much of it is on like no, it's not at sea level, but it's near the sea is sort of like what I feel is the main part of town and where
Sure,
you're
sure.
likely going to what you're going to see and stay in. And then there's lots of other houses and things like up on the hills and the mountains around it. So a lot of people do actually live in Sorrento, but I think a lot of what tourists see is is a lot of touristy stuff that is specifically marketed and made for them. And that's not what I expected, I guess, whenever I went there for the first time. And having seen what is a lot of stuff specifically for tourists, restaurants specifically for tourists that are very expensive and often not that great.
Yeah.
I just don't love it. It's a beautiful town though.
Well, it's also, I think it's worth staying if you're trying to balance between like that and like Positano or something like that. There's a argument there because it's a different view, it's a different vibe. Positano it's supposed to be a little more upscale feeling, but it also can feel a little bit more, again, hyper touristy and somehow slightly less than Sorrento. There's also some really beautiful. I will say Sorrento has a lot more walking in terms of if you want to get up in those lemon groves, as I mentioned. There's a bunch of footpaths that are public that you can go up and walk. So if you're like a plein air painter or something like that, and you want to go up, or a writer, and you want to kind of go up and just kind of walk around, get lost, get inspired, it's almost like a mini Capri in that sense, because
Yeah.
Capri had a lot of those like
I think it's very similar to
public
Capri.
footpaths that you can just kind of go
vibe.
walk through. Yeah, two separate farms. But I think in general, if your goal is to see Naples, I wouldn't recommend staying in Sorrento, Pompeii, Herculaneum to see Naples. I'd recommend staying in Naples, and again, Centro Storico, Spacca Napoli. If you want that sort of, I want to be in it, that would be a great location. If you want to be a little more quiet, Chiaia is lovely. Piazza del Plebiscito is also really nice. That area, it's quiet. It's hotels, families. We like the Galleria Umberto as a hotel that we like just because it's kind of a fun location and it's always kind of fun to wake up there. And then again, if you're just in for a day, station's not bad because you just might as well be near the transportation. So you limit the amount of time that you spend getting back to the station the next day, and also can hop on any form of public transportation if it happens to be there. And I think that's everything.
That was great.
Well, I
Well
hope you
done.
guys, I hope you, if you had any questions, please reach out. But I hope this answered some questions because we're going to get into more of like what to do in Naples and things like that, what to see, where to experience, what to eat. And we hope that this kind of gives you a starting place of like, oh, okay, we're going to stay here. Then we can eat here. We can do this or we can see that thing. So we hope at least helps. And yeah, again, if you have any questions, you can absolutely reach out.
Yeah, we look forward to hearing from you.
And until then, thank you all so much for listening. And we hope that you listen to the next one.
Okay. We'll talk to you next Wednesday. Tanti abbracci.